Welcome back, Bolt fam, to another episode of Chargers Powder Hour. Colin Appel and Miles Raruka here. We are your co-host, and this is episode number 70, draft preview part 2, by the way. My man, how we doing today on this terrific Tuesday?
Episode 70, baby. Shout out Rashawn Slater. I'm doing good, man. We are here sitting 8 days away. Sorry, 9 days away from the NFL draft. Time flies, man. We were just kind of talking about it, but I love this time of year. I love leading up to the NFL draft. I love doing my scouting. I love seeing how other people's mock drafts look. So, man, I'm doing great. It's a great time to be a Chargers fan. How are you doing, my man?
Doing great, man. It's crazy that it's only 9 days away. We're finally here. It seems like this is the pinnacle of the NFL offseason every year. And it's kind of when draft comes around, that's when things finally start to kind of pick up a little again. Or again a little, I should say. But yeah, man, I'm super excited to be heading to my first NFL draft. I'm stoked to see all the fans, just to kind of soak in the entire experience. And yeah, I have no idea what to expect, but I'm super excited. And yeah, we're probably really close to probably like down to the minute being 9 days away from when the Chargers will be making that first selection in the 2023 draft. So yeah, man, I'm pumped up, and it can't come here. It can't get here any sooner.
For real, man. I'm gonna be kind of sad when it's over, but we're gonna come out of that draft with some new pieces to be excited about. And so, man, you gotta love it. But to kick off today's episode, man, what are you drinking?
It's a great question, man. I mixed it up a little bit, not not a ton, but I'm drinking a Modelo again, but
Wow.
this time we have the Negra Modelo. So a little bit a little bit more of a kick to it. Dark Mexican beer. I think it's about 5.4%. So definitely a little bit heavier than your typical light beer. But man, if you like Modelo, if you like cervezas, and you haven't tried Negro Modelo, you're missing out, man. It's tasty, it's good, smooth, goes with anything.
I'll have to give them a try. I've never even heard of them before, so
Oh, really?
never. I'm not a big Modelo guy. Well, I guess I honestly have never even given Modelo a really good shot. I have tried it before, but it's not like a beer I go out of my way to get necessarily.
Yeah, man. We'll have to do an episode sometime where we both have the same beer, and then we can review it, give both our thoughts on it.
We got to do something that neither one of us had had before, obviously. But yeah, we need to get on that for sure.
What are you sipping on over there?
Oh, I'm back to the old tried and true. I got a little Coors Light action. Mountains are blue tonight. Just kind of grabbed what was in my fridge. So hey, I'm enjoying it.
So here we are again, drinking our usual beers that we drink. Um, yeah, man. I think it'd be fun to try like some local LA beers as well. Some
Yeah,
like
we've
Costa
we've talked about
Mesa
that
area
before. We
beers.
we definitely need to figure out some way to kind of hop on that, man, or maybe even just some beer that screams LA vibes. It's like a
Yeah,
a Bush Light doesn't scream LA vibes, but like if you
right.
have, I don't even know what would, but
Modelo is a little bit closer to those vibes, I would say.
definitely like a Corona is definitely closer than
Corona,
a Bush
Modelo, Dos
Light.
Equis.
Anything that you could picture yourself drinking on a beach, I would consider an LA beer.
There
So
you go. Well, man, let's get into it, man. We have some stuff to talk about today, and the first thing I wanted to jump into is actually breaking news as of yesterday, and we haven't recorded for a couple of days, so I just thought it would be proper to kind of bring it up first here. But breaking news: the Chargers re-sign wide receiver Jalen Guyton, and it's funny, like the timing of this, honestly, to me is hilarious because we just recorded our first and second round draft preview a couple days ago without this knowledge. And I mean, I'll get to that in a second, but are you surprised at all of the news? Do you like it? Do you not like it? What's your initial reaction? And yeah, just initial thoughts.
I'm going to start this again because I know we had some very differing opinions last time we brought up Jalen Guyton a few episodes, but yeah, I personally am a fan of the re-signing. I know that you may feel differently, but I am a fan of Jalen Guyton. I like his game. You know, it gives us that vertical threat that we were missing so much last year. I think last year just cemented how important he can be to this offense in certain scenarios. But my biggest worry now is whether or not this affects where we go at 21, because I'm obviously much more comfortable with taking, a Zay Flowers or Jordan Addison at 21 than, relying on one guy coming off a torn ACL and not a whole ton of productivity in the league in Jalen Guyton. I know he can fly. I mean, we've seen it. It's especially Herb's rookie year with him, Tyron Johnson. I just felt like that they went hand in hand very well together. Um, but yeah, I don't want this to affect where we go at 21. I know that was a big kind of argument or something that we got into about a few episodes ago. But I don't know, man. What are your kind of thoughts on the re-signing? What do you think about different directions we take in the draft, knowing what we know now with Jalen Guyton remaining a Charger? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons why the second I saw the news break, I I immediately knew it kind of had draft night implications. I just don't see. I mean, look, they could pull a fast one on all of us, and maybe they only view bringing Jalen Guyton back as more or less of a kind of a roster invite. Like no guarantees he makes the roster, but hey, we like you, we're familiar with you. Come, be with us through the off season, work out. I know he's still coming off the ACL, so I don't know even how much, like how limited he is now. I mean, I'm assuming he probably is still pretty limited. So there's all that to unpack as well. But I just with this news, I just don't see them going receiver specifically in round one, and I I guess now is a time to kind of make a better case for that as well because I think the Chargers can get away without going receiver in round one, and it's something that I'm actually going to talk about and bring up here in a couple minutes when we talk about our rounds 3 through 5 wish list. Um, but yeah, I think this pretty much cements no receiver round one, and it's really for me. I mean, I'm sticking with my with my pick that I went with Bijan at 21. That's who I want wholeheartedly, but I definitely think there's a strong case to be made for a defensive pick in round one now.
Yeah, this signing definitely alters kind of how we view round one now. It was kind of something that just kind of came out of the blue. I think most Chargers fans even forgot about Jalen Guyton at this point. It just feels like a really weird time to be re-signing people right now. But obviously
Yeah.
that's just kind of how it goes. But yeah, I don't know, man. I could still see them going receiver round one. I know for you and a lot of people, it almost seems like now it's taken a full 180 to the defensive side of the ball. I know we already recorded our round one predictions, but I've seen dudes like Miles Murphy from the DN from Clemson being a very popular pick for us. Um, well, that's a fan favorite at least at 21 if we don't go a weapon for Justin on that offensive side of the ball. So I don't know. I could still see us, like I just mentioned, I could still see us going receiver at 21, but the chances have decreased definitely with the signing of Jalen Guyton.
Yeah, I just don't see it now. I mean, again, I'll touch on it here in a bit, but I think there are some really good options in the later rounds. Specifically rounds 2 through 4, 2 through 5, and um, yeah, I mean, like, and by re-signing Jalen Guyton, it's also not like. I mean, I agree with you. They still could go receiver because it's not. I mean, Jalen Guyton is fast, but he's only fast compared to who's on this roster. Like he doesn't run in the 4.3s. I don't think, anyways. I'm pretty sure he's probably a 4.45 guy right in there. Which again, like that's pretty quick, but comparing it to, I mean, that's fucking Usain Bolt speed compared to like the other people on this roster, especially in the receiver room. So I get that, and I get the wanting to bring him back. I mean, solely because of that skill trait, but I think there's even faster, quicker guys that you can find in this draft, specifically in those later rounds, that could be the next Josh Palmer or the next Jalen Guyton or whoever. So yeah, man, I think it's looking pretty bleak, to be honest with you, for what the Chargers do. I mean, as far as receiver in round one, I think if a tight end falls to them that they absolutely love, I could still see them going weapon for Herbert in round one, or if Bijan, falls into their lap too. That's my prediction. But I think receiver pretty much round one. I think yesterday's news for me, it kind of convinced me that that's kind of a pipe dream now.
Fair. And I mean, I understand why you and everyone else is um, thinking that way. I feel like the importance in this draft of, especially with new OC coming in, with Herbert still on his rookie deal as of now, but I feel like the attention's on that offense more than anything on the field, and especially at what are we going to be able to do now that we brought in a new OC to maximize Justin Herbert's potential. And if it's going to take a round one talent to do that, then I would not be surprised to see them still go receiver at 21. And if not, and they go tight end or running back or someone else, then
They're
what
not
do
going
I
to go
know? I
receiver.
guess, but I
They're not
mean,
going to go receiver round one.
all
I know
right.
you think like
I'm
I
just
mean
saying,
they're
I
not.
think that there's still a chance.
I mean, sure, there's always a chance, but they're not going to do it. Like, where are you going to get him playing time? He's going to be wide receiver like 4.5 this year.
Put him
Like,
no.
that's my argument is that there are other pieces in the first round that could make more of an immediate impact than a Zay Flowers, and that's at this point, like that's my argument against receiver round one, especially again Jalen. Like, it's not huge news because Jalen Guyton isn't like a centerpiece of this offense by any means, but it has enough implications, I think, with the draft being 9 days out, that I just like that at the end of the day, that is what you'd probably have to convince yourself of if you're the Chargers. Like, okay, we're still willing to essentially blow a first round pick on a guy that we might not even, I mean, he might not even see the field at all in the first season. And if he does, like, he'll be a role player at best, unless the entire team just gets hurt again. But that to
Yeah.
me, I think, is like what I just can't convince myself of. And yeah, like again, there's always a chance, but I just don't see it happening.
I guess we'll just have to see what happens next Thursday night. But yeah, definitely Jalen Guyton news. To me, was it surprising to you?
Yeah, it was. I mean, I don't know why they wouldn't have done it 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. I mean, I guess it possibly could have been maybe he wasn't as far along in his recovery process, and maybe they were kind of just more unsure of. I don't know. Yeah, surprising for sure, especially at this point. It's just really peculiar that it's 9 days out from the draft, and it's probably a plan that they've had for a while and just now acted on it. But yeah, I did not see it coming.
Well, here we are, man. Jalen Guyton is a Charger. What were those? Did you have those contract details at all?
I don't even know if they're
I
out
don't know.
yet,
I don't
but
know if they're out either,
I
but
I would
I haven't
assume it's
seen
just a
anything.
1 year deal, with kind of like a Christian Covington deal last year, where like yeah, he
Yeah.
ended up actually playing a significant amount of snaps because some guys went down, but there was also a point in training camp where we didn't know if Covington was going to make the roster. Which, did he break the roster? Like, did he make the roster coming out of camp?
Originally, I believe Covington was on the roster. Yes.
Okay. So maybe I that's kind of how I view this, is like, will he probably be on the roster? Probably, but there's also a chance that, like, they're not married to him by any means.
Yeah, I
Um,
guess that would be that would be a point that I would agree with. So
yeah. So let's go ahead and move on to the next topic here. And that is, I want to talk really quick before we get into the wish list here for the remaining rounds. But I read a Daniel Popper article today, and it was really interesting because the main topic was basically, will Tom Telesco end up trading back for the first time as a GM in his now 10-year, 9 years, 10 years at the helm of the Chargers. So there's a couple different landing spots that Popper specifically kind of laid out, and I just want to get your take on them real quick because one, I want to get your take on, do you think there's a chance? I mean, do you think there's a legitimate chance that Telesco trades back, and if so, is there a ideal spot to trade back to? So, to give you some reference, Popper basically has, for the only options, for the only legit options the Chargers should explore would basically be to trade back from 21 down to either number 24 through 30. Obviously, with picks 29 and 30 getting a little bit more higher compensation than, a trading down to pick 24 or 25. But nevertheless, could potentially get an extra pick and still be in a good position to snag a guy in round one. So, what are your thoughts? Do you see it happening at all?
Yeah, I think any GM is open to it with obviously the right price, the right expense. I know that they have guys on their radar that they really like at 21. Let's say that top guy or maybe a few of those top guys aren't there. And then, you kind of go from that. Okay, these are our tier 1 players to maybe our secondary tier 2 players. There's not a big name best player available, which we know Tom has gone to in the past in the draft. It wouldn't surprise me at all. Whether I could pinpoint what pick we would drop down to, I mean, I think that's just kind of all going to be entailed within how the draft goes.
I mean,
Like I mentioned, there's going to be certain players that maybe their round one option goes early. They're like number one guy goes early, and they have maybe not necessarily a round two, but that borderline round one, round two kind of guy that they have in mind. Then yeah, I wouldn't mind dropping back a few spots, especially if we can get a few extra picks out of it. But just
so basically,
oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, basically what it comes down to, you can trade back to number 24, 25 and basically get an extra fourth or a fifth round, or maybe even like a sixth round. As you trade back even further, 26, 27, then you could potentially looking at getting another third round, fourth round, maybe. Whereas if you're trading all the way back to 29, 30, you could potentially get another second round. So it's just kind of like, if they were to, where would you like them to trade back to? Like, would you rather have them trade all the way back to 30 and get an additional, let's say, second rounder? Like, what additional draft piece would hold the most value for you?
Oh
If they
man,
were,
if we figured out a way to drop back still in the first round and then get a second round pick out of it, I think that's a
or even a third.
or even a third. I mean, obviously that would depend.
I mean,
I
I
would
do
move
think it
back to
definitely be a
30 if
third.
it meant another second round. I would probably only
Yeah.
move back to like 26 if it meant the third round.
Okay. Yeah.
It just kind of, like I mentioned before, it just kind of all depends on who falls to 21, and I don't think that that's going to be. It's
Yeah.
definitely not going to be a decision that they have made in mind before the draft
No.
starts. It's definitely how the draft goes is all going to tell how they're going
Yeah.
to attack that 21 position.
100%. And look, I think, I've heard it before where, I think it's a common saying where, like, there are pretty much only, like, on any given year, there's probably only like 17 to 20 legit round one players. And then everyone else taken in the round one, it either ends up being like a reach or a bust, or, just whatever, doesn't end up working out. So with that in mind, like, is it worth the risk? Because they're sitting right at 21. And this is a draft this year where, in particular, there's probably going to be 4 quarterbacks taking at least. Yeah, probably 4. So when you take all the quarterbacks off the board, the Chargers are basically looking at like a top 17, top 16 pick. Um, is that worth giving up to get an additional second or third round?
Definitely could be. It really just all depends who's going to slip where. Every year, there's certain guys that fall way further than they should. I mean, look at Derwin James, for example. That dude should have been top 10 by a long shot. Obviously, now look at his value in the
Yeah.
league. That dude's
Yeah,
probably
and
deserved to be top 3 looking back on it.
I think that would be probably the jackpot of all trading backs and also getting like you just like the lottery of trading back, I think is what you just described there. If you were able to trade back and also get a talent like a Rashawn Slater or a Derwin James that falls way further than they ever should have, then I mean that would be a home run, easy, knock it out of the park. And I don't know, man. I also have this philosophy, being a Chargers fan. Do I trust Tom Telesco to make the right picks in between rounds 2 and 7? Because
Well,
round 1, like track record, he's got a pretty good track record. Like I'm round 1 never. I mean, has he missed on a few round 1s for sure? But overall,
he's hit on a lot more than
he's
he's
hit
missed.
on a
I would say
lot more.
his shooting percentage in round 1 is one of the higher ones in the league for sure.
Right. And we've talked about that too in episodes past of like, hey, whether or not it's really just him or it's just, hey, like you'd be an idiot, like you just this golden to your lap and you'd be an idiot not to take it. Like doesn't matter at the end of the day. Okay. Are you there?
Yeah. What's up?
Okay. I don't know. My Wi-Fi was being
Yeah.
real
Well,
glitchy for a second.
I don't know if it was yours or mine, but one of them was being wonky. All right.
Oh, you're good. But no, man, I just at the end of the day, like I'm also taking that into account of like, do I trust Tom Telesco to make the right move in those later rounds? Because if that's what it, if you trading back means you lose out on maybe a guy that you like to, 18, 19, 20, 21, somewhere in that range, that's out the window now that you traded back to 28. But good news is you got an additional third round, maybe even a fifth round out of it. So now you have ultimately, if you zoom out, you have more picks, which means more chances to hit on players. And I get that. Like, I get that whole game and I understand that. But to me, I'm just like, man, if you miss out on one of those really good prospects in that first round, just to leave it up to a GM that may or may not hit on those later rounds, I think me personally, I would not trade down unless they get to like 21 and there's literally like Bijan, Michael Mayer, Nolan Smith, Will McDonald. Like if there's just like 5 or 6 guys that haven't even been off the board yet at 21, then like I think it's a no-brainer, but I don't see that happening.
Yeah, I don't know. It's definitely super up in the air. I would say that what do you think the chances would be of a guy like Tom Telesco trading up?
Probably even slimmer than trading back.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
If they're, I think if the roster were, if they had more depth, and if they weren't married to as many contracts as they are, then maybe like I wouldn't rule it out. But like last draft would have been a great draft. That if I looking back on it, like that would have been a great draft to predict an aggressive move to trade ahead. Just given the entire offseason that we had last year, it just would have been on par with the offseason. Like, oh, Chargers traded ahead 10 spots to go get another stud, and it just feels like that the vibe this offseason has gone from like super aggressive all in to like, fuck, we have to figure out how to make this thing last another 3-4 seasons, and we have to pay Justin. So
you think that's how Tom looks at it? Like if someone asked Tom, like, why didn't you trade up? He just says the vibe was off. Like you think that that's what he says?
I mean, verbatim, no, but
Well, obviously not actually, but like I know exactly where you're coming from.
Yeah, no, I
Because
mean, I definitely like a feeling. Yeah, I mean, I think I mean, I've never ran a football team or general managed anything, but I feel like a lot of it just as humans, like that's the human element. Human element is basically you just got to trust your gut, and if the feeling's right, go for it, and if it's not, then don't. And yeah, feeling, vibe, whatever you want to call it. I do think that's probably how a lot of them make those decisions, and I'm sure, I'm sure it's not just solely his decision. I'm sure he has an entire team that he's working with every day, and there's other opinions forming, and I don't know, man. Yeah, I think at the end of the day, though, they go off a gut feeling, and if it's there, cool. If it's not, then you know, better safe than sorry.
this is what I love so much about the draft is there's just so much unknown that goes with. I remember last year when we were talking about our prospects, I know we even mentioned talking about Derek Stingley at where we were picking last year, and he ended up going like third overall. Not that that wasn't expected, but you just got to always expect the unexpected, and I think that's what we
Yeah.
need to be prepared for come next Thursday night. So
Well, every year I feel like there's prospects that start the pre-draft process super high, and then throughout the process, for whatever reason, they get shit on and they drop. But then again, like right before the draft, they start to kind of get this you know new level of hype, and they start to kind of climb again. Like Jackson Smith and Najigba, perfect example this year of like a guy that at one point was like mocked super high, and then just like a month ago, it was like, is this guy going to go in the first round? And now, like on PFF mocks, he's like top 12, top 13 pick. So it's like there's just so much of like shit being thrown out there. You don't know what to believe. It's all misinformation, smoke and mirrors. We've seen and know teams that deliberately will trash players just in hopes that they fall to them. Like the mind games that go on with the draft and with teams, like this is 100% in my opinion where GMs make their money, where they make their livelihood. If you're a GM for 10, 15 years, it probably means you were really good at drafting, developing, and then eventually sustaining players. Now, we've seen Telesco draft and develop guys. It's the resigning and sustaining them that we haven't really seen out of him. But nevertheless, I mean, this is the lifeblood of this league, the lifeline. Like, yeah,
yeah, these are the guys. You can talk about free agency all you want, but this is where your teams are really made, and it's especially for us. It's not just about drafting these guys; it's about keeping them around till they get to their second contract. I've heard a lot of people say, a lot of your NFL success, after your career or during your career is all going to be determined on that second contract. Where you're going to land at, what kind of money you're going to earn. So I think that's the weakness in Telesco's game. Drafting is what excites me most about him. But like you mentioned, we're going to get into it here pretty quick. Our post round 2 picks, but Telesco post round 1, iffy,
yeah,
iffy for sure. So
yeah, man. Well, let's go ahead and do it. This is a good time to jump into it. So we're gonna kind of do this. We're gonna combine these a little bit. So we got rounds 3 through 5. So 3, 4, and 5. Now you don't specifically have to go through each round. You can just kind of pick 2 to 3 prospects that you like in those rounds that are on your wish list. You would love to see them in powder blue, and yeah, I mean that's pretty much it when it comes to this criteria. So um, I'll go ahead and start us off for round number 3 because I have a prospect that I've been itching to talk about. He's a prospect that we both know very well, and he is who I was hinting about earlier when I mentioned that I think the Chargers can be just fine without drafting a wide receiver in round 1.
I know exactly who you're gonna say.
I
Just
already know
just so
you
you
know.
know,
I already know
because
you
I
know.
was gonna say him too. So
Um, has great speed. Was initially a 5-star recruit out of high school, and who I am talking about is our very own, and when I say our very own, Nebraska's very own, Trey Palmer. I think his official 40 time was just under 4.4. I want to say like 4.39.
4.33,
4.3.
4.33.
God damn.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fastest receiver at the combine.
So look, serious speed. We obviously saw it firsthand all last season while he was in a Huskers uniform. Developed great chemistry with Casey Thompson, the quarterback here. Just really fun to watch him come in, and he had like the quietest like successful season. Like broke the the program record for receiving yards in a single season, and the only season that he was a Charger, which I think is
You mean a Husker?
or a Husker, my bad, which I think is
Soon to
absolutely.
be a Charger, though. Soon to be a Charger, though.
I hope. Yeah, I think that would be absolutely hilarious, or it is absolutely hilarious that he's the all-time single season receiving leader and he's only been there for one season. So, nevertheless, super talented guy. What I like about him is that he is a complete receiver. I mean, like I said, he is a former 5-star prospect, so it's not just his speed. He's not just a one-trick pony. We've seen those types of guys before, and it just hasn't paid. When you bring in a guy just because he has one skill trait, it's kind of a red flag. And I'm thinking of guys like Travis Benjamin. Like, was he a decent receiver? I guess at the NFL level, but like, is he an NFL receiver if he's not as fast as he is? No fucking way.
Yeah. I
So, like
well,
guys like that, where I'm like, okay, they have the speed part of it, and like obviously, I mean, we talked about that with bringing Jalen Guyton back, but to be able to be like a complete receiver and have be able to run every, I mean, unlock every route tree and whatever, I don't know, just the complete receiver. Think about the complete receiver in your head, but then also add in that 4.3 speed. Basically, a Mike Williams with 4.3 speed. Not as tall, but
Travis Benjamin is my sleep paralysis demon. I will wake up in a cold sweat in the middle of the night and see Travis Benjamin in the corner of my room thinking about the time in which he ran a punt backwards for a safety
we
against the
should have won that game.
Patriots. Sorry, I just the second you brought up that name, I had to talk some shit. But yeah, man, Trey Palmer, that was the guy I was going to bring up. Round 3, me personally, I think he could be more of a day 3 guy.
Yeah,
I could see us wait until 4th or 5th to pick up
yeah,
a
I
guy
could see
like
that
Trey
as well.
Palmer. But I mean, obviously, that's the guy that you and I have watched the most, and
Yeah,
we know what he can do. Like you mentioned, he was a 4-star coming out of high school, went to LSU, was very productive at LSU, then came to Nebraska. So I mean, he's an SEC talent that came to a Big Ten school essentially. So yeah, Trey Palmer, love that guy. Made a lot of plays for us last year, especially in our massive win against Iowa. Which if you're from Nebraska, which I know probably zero of you guys are, that is a massive thing. But yeah, Trey Palmer is also one of my favorite guys to target in that 3 to 5 rounds.
yeah,
A few
and
other
I guess
one other guy that I kind of had in mind, or did you have anyone else in mind?
well, one last thing I was going to add on Trey was basically what I was trying to say earlier when I was like losing my train of thought was he's got more of a developed route tree than a lot of other speed receivers in this draft, and that's been my main thing. But he also, I think what he would be able to bring to this offense, and I don't think this offense has enough of this, is guys that can win at every level of the field. Um, and so that's what stands out to me the most about Trey Palmer. But yeah, I agree. He's right there for me in that 3 to 5 range.
Yeah, I like the Trey Palmer. I like the Trey Palmer pick a lot. So
Who were you about to say though? You were about to.
So one guy that I've seen that's really big on Chargers Twitter thus far, a sleeper, if you will, but a guy that I haven't really watched film on yet. But he's a defensive end, 6'4", 275 pounds, earned an 81.9 pass rush grade last year from Missouri, Isaiah McGuire. I don't
Ooh, yeah.
know if you've heard a ton about this guy.
Nope.
Definitely a round 3 guy if he doesn't slip into round 2. I just think 6'4", 275 really speaks for itself. Uh, he's a big, long guy. I really think that's kind of that's the physical style I really like out of a defensive end is length. If you have that length, then you can easily get your hands in on an offensive tackle and do whatever moves you want to. So anytime that there's a big defensive end prospect in a draft, I'm going to be drawn towards him. So Isaiah McGuire is one of those guys that I am quite a fan of.
Yeah, I've seen his name pop up a few times on some PFF mocks, and yeah, I've seen his name. I read a little bit about him. Not too familiar with him, kind of like you said, but yeah, edge is going to be a huge position, especially when it comes to depth and that area of need. So I like that pick. Another kind of round 3 through 5 guy that I do like. Uh, he was a key piece to this defense that made a run at the national championship this year, and that's D Winters, linebacker out of TCU. He's a bit undersized. I think he's only 5'11", 220 something, somewhere in there, but he plays a lot bigger, and he's fast. He's a tackling machine. He's
He,
kind of
I do remember watching him in the playoff. He was all over the field.
yeah. Honestly, I kind of hate to give him this comparison because this college comparison because the NFL did not turn. He's still on our roster, so I don't want to talk too much shit about him, even though we have before. But he kind of gives me K9, like college K9 vibes. Just being like a, sideline to sideline guy that can just make plays, can tackle, incredible range, and dude had like 240 some tackles in his career with TCU. So just dude is everywhere. And now that Drew Tranquil is gone, like I know Staley isn't a linebacker guy, and people will be like, "Oh, he's not." But it's time that we gotta to refill that linebacker room. I know we got Eric Kendricks on board, but we're gonna need more depth. And so I think round 5 would be a good landing spot for a guy like Dean Winters.
Yeah, I like that pick a lot. I only watched a few TCU games this year, mostly the playoff and I think a couple Big 12 games. But D Winters, I mean, they mention him every single time TCU was on defense. Like that because I know that because if it's a day 3 guy and you say their name and I recognize it, then I definitely
Yeah.
think he's a baller. So D
Right. If I
Winters,
still recognize you and you're going in the 6th round, like that means
yeah,
it's a
exactly.
good sign.
Then you're one of my favorites if I recognize your name. So yeah, that's a good one. Another. Let's see how many. We're just kind of going back and forth here. How many you just want to do 3 each? Cover the 3 through 5.
Sure, I can do one more if you want
All right, let's do that then.
to add a few more.
Yeah. One other guy I really like. Obviously, a lot of this you have to take with a grain of salt, considering we're predicting what we're basically not predicting what happens in rounds 1 and 2 because it's just so up in the air. So, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
For example, if Bijan goes to us in round 1, then this pick would not make any sense. But I got a running back here that I really like. He averaged 5.5 yards per carry the last year, and over 4 of those yards came after contact. So great downhill runner.
Okay.
Really just a nose to the ground. He's just a gritty guy. Also, probably my favorite name in the draft from Auburn, Tank Bigsby.
Oh yeah.
So,
Yeah, that dude was born to be a running back.
I mean,
That
dude,
man.
if your name is Tank Bigsby, there's no way you're
Yeah.
not gonna run through a motherfucker face.
You were
So
either born to be a running back or like a heavyweight boxer.
yeah, you have to do. You're doing something badass with your life if your name is Tank Bigsby. But would love to see
100%.
him in the powder blue. Just a real physical back. Not the biggest guy ever. I also wanted to mention Deuce Vaughn from Kansas State. Just because shout out Darren Sproles could be kind of another Darren Sproles, but in a way, Austin Eckler is kind of our new Darren Sproles. So that's
Chargers
why I'm gonna.
love a
That's
good
why I'm gonna
scat pack.
give. What'd you say?
I just said the Chargers love a good scat pack.
Yeah, exactly. And Austin Eckler is a perfect scat back, but we need that downhill runner, and I think Tank Bigsby can be that guy. So Tank Bigsby is another guy that I really like, not just because of the
Yeah,
name either.
solid pick, and I would still throw him in there. Just because, yeah, look, we don't know what's going to go down in first couple rounds, but I think he's still a guy that, like, odds probably are Bajan won't. Well, if he is there, who knows? I mean, yeah, he's just a solid prospect in those middle rounds that, if it ends up being kind of a plan B route and you're looking at a running back in those rounds, and yeah, I mean, he's a solid prospect. So I do like that one a lot. My last pick here for the 3 through 5 rounds is going to be and most of these picks, I think at this point in the draft, are going to be depth pieces. But you never know. There can be some diamonds in the rough there. And this one, hopefully, this is our diamond in the rough this draft when it comes to offensive linemen. But Curtis McClendon from Chattanooga, offensive lineman. He slipped a little bit before the combine, but I think he's going to be a focal point for their day 3 plans. So, more depth on the offensive line. He's got experience at guard and at tackle, which I think makes him more of an ideal depth candidate for the Chargers. Kind of that Jamari Sawyer type of player that we found last year. And his athletic testing, I think it was okay, is kind of from what I'm seeing here. But yeah, mainly that versatility to be, tackle or guard, I think gives them a nice depth piece on that offensive line.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. Never heard the name before in my entire life, but
I hadn't until about like 2 hours ago, if I'm being completely honest.
but hey,
And I
I think
honestly,
Chattanooga had Cole Strange last year get drafted first round by the Patriots. So something's going on with that offensive line there in Chattanooga, Tennessee. So
true. Yeah, that's actually a really good point. I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, Cole Strange. I remember that pick. That was a strange pick.
dude, I kid you not, I'm looking at a mock draft right now. Round 3 to the Chargers is Trey Palmer. Round 4 is D Winters, and round 5 is McClendon Curtis. You didn't go off of this website, did you?
You found the website I went off of.
Oh wow, you wrote this article, didn't you?
Yeah, I actually wrote it, and no, I didn't write
But
it.
that's actually crazy that all 3 of those guys. Because I'm just looking for some inspiration through these, but
So there was this article and there's another article because I wanted to look at a couple just to get kind of a consensus, even though I was like rounds 3 through 7, you probably aren't gonna have much of a consensus, like you would in round 1. But honestly, like I saw Trey Palmer pop up and one of our mocks in I think the 4th round, so that's one of the reasons I went with him. And then D Winters, I actually did. Like I didn't know where the hell he was supposed to go. Like I knew of him. I obviously watching the playoffs this year, and like you said, his name came up pretty much every snap because he was making tackles all over the field. So he just stood out to me. He's the captain of that defense too, which I don't know if that means much for other people, but I really like that. He's a leader. That tells me a lot. So, yeah, when I saw him kind of in those mid rounds, I'm like, okay, well, that's yeah. He was kind of those guys. I'm like, if you wouldn't have told me like he could be projected in those mid rounds, I would have just assumed he would be gone in like probably round 2.
yeah,
But
100%.
he is undersized, and there's some other stuff that goes into that. But yeah, no, Curtis McClendon, I've never heard of him before, but I do think that is interesting that you pointed out that Chattanooga had an offensive lineman drafted last year, so something could be stirring in Chattanooga, a little OLU.
Guess we'd
So
have to look. Their offensive line coach definitely got a job somewhere else. Let's be honest. But what
yeah, both these
if you're
guys get
producing
drafted.
first round talent out of Chattanooga, dude? I'm hiring you to my coaching staff anywhere I am in the country. I can tell you that much.
Well, Curtis McClendon will not be first round, but yes, Cole Strange. I see what you're saying.
I think Cole Strange could have been a third round though. Let's be real. But
Yeah, right. For
yeah,
real.
that's a good list of people, man. I just want to give another shout out to a couple more receivers I really like that definitely could fall in this 3 to 5 range. I know we talked about Trey Palmer a lot, but there's a lot of guys, a lot of big name guys that I really like. Kayshon Butte from LSU is one of them. I've been I've been a fan of him since he came out of high school. He, was kind of injury riddled in college, but I think that 5-star talent's still there. Marvin Mims, smaller guy, averaged 19 and a half yards per catch last year
Yep.
for Oklahoma. Those are two more receivers I wanted to give a shout out to, and then two linebackers. Actually, I know you talked about D Winters, but DeMarvion Overshone from Texas kind of gives me some Kenneth Murray flashbacks, kind of like you said with D Winters. They call him the Sweat Bandit. Pretty sure he wears like 10 sweat bands on his arm every single time that he plays. So and his
Jesus.
name's Demarion Overshone. So I mean that's kind of badass. But nonetheless,
Marion.
I've watched quite a few Texas games. It feels like he's been there forever, and that dude just seems like to have a nose for the ball, similar to Kenneth Murray, which is also another reason why I wouldn't mind taking a chance at him in the 4th round. But and then finally another linebacker I really like is Noah Sewell, Penei Sewell's brother from
Yeah.
Oregon. Um, just a really gritty guy, like I mentioned, just seems to fly all over the ball. Obviously, the family runs on talent, man. You got your brothers an offensive tackle for the Lions. You're balling out for Oregon. You're gonna be drafted this year. So Noah Sewell's another name that I quite like at that linebacker position. But again, we know how little this defense values
Yeah.
linebackers, so we might just be
Yeah.
talking out of our ass.
Hey, I mean, you never like at some point they have to replenish that position group. I mean, if Telesco is going to draft good talent at linebacker every 2 years and then they're just gone the next 2 years, like, I mean, fuck, like, and that's one thing. I mean, again, that's like a weakness of his game. You brought that up, like not being able to keep talent in the organization has been an issue for him because I mean, linebacker, like if you went back 4 years ago and just saw the picks that we've made at that position in the last 4 years, you'd be like, oh, we're set for the next 6 years. You know, Kaiser White, Kenneth Murray, Drew Tranquil, like that's a linebacker core that is young, is good, or pretty good, and could have been here for a while for honestly not that much. So yeah, at some point they have to address it. So I don't think that's a bad pick at all. Let's transition here to rounds 6 through 7. Let's bring this draft preview home, baby. Round 6, interesting round, and I'm actually I'm gonna stay on the. Well, actually, no, I'll save him for round 7 because I do think there's a better chance of this guy going in round 6. Uh, so I'm gonna go back over to the defensive side of the ball, but round 6, I really love Corey Trice Jr., cornerback out of Purdue. Do you know anything about him?
I've heard the name. If they play in the Big Ten, I've definitely heard of them before. So, and that name sounds familiar. So, yeah.
Yeah. So Purdue guy. I just looking at his highlights on YouTube, I was like just the eye test. I'm like, damn, this guy can ball. And so I wanted to look up his 40 time here real quick. I don't know what his 4.47. So he's got speed. Um, and I don't know too much about him, but just he's been a hot mock to the Chargers in like those 5-6 rounds. So I'm gonna say round 6. That would be or round 6 or 7, I should say. That's definitely a guy on my wish list.
Yeah. I like that, man. That cornerback depth is anything we can get at that cornerback position. I really love. So
Yeah,
I like that
I mean
pick.
it's sitting pretty good right now. I mean, I'm still excited to see like, look, I think it's easy to forget about like past like prior years draft picks that just haven't necessarily broken out yet, or for whatever reason, they didn't get a chance to kind of shine in year one. So I'm really excited for like the development of guys like Dean Leonard, Jasir Taylor. But yeah, I mean, if you can add to that, even guys like JT Woods, who unfortunately I think a lot of the fan base has already kind of wrote off as a bust. But you never know. I mean, they're projects for a reason. We didn't see Trey Pipkins even resemble an offensive, like a professional offensive lineman until probably like 18 months ago, and now he's like the future at right tackle.
True, man. True. So a lot to a lot to unpack with those kind of picks. Like Daniel Popper's always said, you cannot be a bust as a rookie. You have to always give it at
Yeah,
least 2 years just to see what somebody's full value is, what somebody's full worth can be for your program. You know, JT Woods might not be a guy that we see break out until 2025, but if he does at some point, then that's a risk that was deservedly taken.
yeah, I
So
agree.
for me, man, this is where it gets tough just because a lot of these round three guys, like we've mentioned, I don't know jack shit about them. But one guy that I have heard a few times over and over is Blake Freeland, a offensive tackle from BYU. Pretty big dude, 6'8", 302. But he tested very athletically at the combine. 37-inch vertical for somebody that big is absolutely crazy. Sub
Yeah,
sub 5 40-yard dash for 6'8", 302 pounds.
wow,
Just seems like he's a
that's
pretty
really good.
versatile athlete, just a big dude. That offensive line depth is something that it seems like we bitch about year in and year out, and it's never going to be a pick that I am upset with. So that being said, I'll take Kyle Freeland.
Okay, I like that pick. I like that prospect. I only really have one more. I mean, I know we were gonna do 3 and 3, but I mean, after this one, I just really don't care to dig any deeper. But this is just a guy that I have watched a few times throughout the season, the college football season this year, which is actually pretty rare for me because I only watch like a handful of college football games a year. But Cincinnati just happened to be on a few times when I was watching. I think I watched a good portion of their bowl game. But if you watched him at all this season, then you know this name because it was just like D Winters with TCU. This name was coming up probably every 10 seconds on the broadcast, and that is Ivan Pace Jr.,
Mm-hmm.
linebacker out of Cincinnati. Dude is a fucking baller. I remember physically like watching that bowl game. I can't remember who they played, but I remember like saying to myself like, dude, I would love for this guy to be a Charger. Like very similar to D Winters in the the sense of I believe he was the captain of that defense as well. So he's got those leadership qualities that you look for, and the character that you look for. But dude is just a baller, and I've seen him mocked in most mocks, like well, not to the Chargers, but like falling in round 6 and 7. So for whatever reason, he just seems like I don't know if he's undersized or if there's some knock on him that is preventing him from being a day 2 guy or early day 3 guy. Um, but that's another linebacker that if the Chargers could scoop up a guy like that in round 6 or 7, would just be an absolute home run.
Yeah, dude, I love that pick. That was another guy that I have heard of and have taken quite a liking to there on that Cincinnati defense. We've seen Cincinnati have a lot of success within their football program over the last few years. So I think that just shows the kind of the NFL readiness of somebody from not a Power Five program necessarily. So I do like
Yeah.
that pick. My final one, day 3 guy. Not sure. I don't know if he's around 5, round 6, round 7, but just day 3 in general. Give me Dorian Thompson Robinson, the quarterback from UCLA.
Okay.
I like especially what he could do on the ground. And let's just be honest, as Chargers fans, we saw what it was like having Chase Daniel in the game last year. We've seen Easton Stick play enough in the preseason. Neither one of those dudes are anyone that we can be remotely comfortable having in a football game if something were to happen to Justin Herbert. I think quarterback is especially a younger backup kind of guy that can learn from who's going to be a veteran at someday, Justin Herbert. I love what DTR brings to the table. Keep him in Southern California, and let's make him a Charger.
Yeah, honestly, I like that pick a lot, and a lot of people are probably like, do we really need to waste another draft pick on a quarterback when we already have our backup for this upcoming season? But
And our
look, man,
backup's backup.
well, Daniels is gone.
Wait, yeah. Okay.
Easton
Never mind.
Stick,
Never mind.
Easton
Yeah, I
Stick
was
is our
thinking,
starting backup.
yeah, never mind. Never mind. Never mind.
So like, yeah, like, but here's the thing, man. How many times have we seen a team like the 49ers like be down to their second, third string quarterback? I mean, just happened, you know, Mr. Irrelevant, like nonetheless. So yeah, I used to be under the mindset of how fuck backups. If you have a quarterback like Herbert, it's not going to matter who you throw in there. Like it's like the season's over. Like pack it up, come back again next year. Like you're just that talented at that spot. You're just almost unreplaceable, you know. And so I was always kind of under the mindset of like, well, that's a roster spot that could be used elsewhere. That's an extra lineman down the stretch of a long season, or that's an extra skill player, or whatever, whatever area of need that you need it. So like, I didn't think the Chargers needed 3 quarterbacks this last year on the roster, but then when you start to think about it, if you have a couple of at least like competent guys behind Herbert, that could be the difference of, at least having a season continue into the playoffs versus just having a season end in week 9 or 10.
Exactly. Because I mean, I'm the same way. If something were to happen to our king Justin Herbert, like I would be ready to just call it a season. So I think we need to find somebody that rejuvenates a little bit of life into this offense if they were to get
Yeah.
put in a situation like that.
For someone that's just, like I said, like, you're just looking, I think for a backup, like you're really just looking for someone that is competent, like is not going to just go out there and shit the bed, but also someone that's talented enough to make a play or two when it has to be made. Like I think my ideal backup quarterback in the NFL right now would probably be someone like Marcus Mariota.
Because
Like,
even if they don't have that talent with their arm to 100%, they have another characteristic of their game that
yeah, and you
can do
just
so
like
much more for you.
one time he was a starter. Is he a starter? No, we know that now. But like, we know the like, with a guy like that, the talent's there. Like, won a Heisman at one point. Everyone thought he was like going to be the next guy in the league. When he got drafted, like I'll admit it. Like when those rumors came up of like possibly trading Rivers to Nashville for Mariota, I was like, I'm honestly like kind of entertaining those. Like I
Yeah.
remember that being because I was so high on Mariota at that time. But I mean that would be like my ideal backup. Someone that's maybe been a starter before, been the guy. He has the talent somewhere in there to make a play if he has to. But yeah, I just someone like Easton Stick, I don't know, man. It makes me nervous.
It feels like he's been our backup, one of our backups for so long, and yet I mean, I'm obviously speaking preseason, but he just doesn't really do much. It's like I
Yeah,
couldn't tell you last
it's
time I
like,
saw him be like.
yeah, he's in a tough spot too, though. I mean, like, you're the
No,
backup
yeah, I'm
quarterback.
not saying this to
Yeah,
shit on
I mean,
Easton
just as
Stick.
fans too. Like, I know, I get what you're saying, but yeah, like, I also don't think he's the answer, but I also kind of feel for him sometimes because it's not like he hasn't. I mean, he hasn't even done anything. He hasn't even really had the chance to do anything. So, but I look, we still can tell like if whether or not just eye test wise, if you know you're gonna you're gonna be able to produce when the time comes. So yeah, man, I like that pick. I like taking a quarterback around 7. I have no problem with that. Because like I said, at some point you gotta and you can never be too prepared, especially at that position. And I want to say Easton Stick, like he's not even the long term solution. At well, did he? No, he just resigned, right?
Yeah, but
How
I
was
can't
it a
even
one
remember how
year?
many years. I don't remember.
Okay, so I don't know. I mean, I guess he could be, but like at the end of the
He
day,
resigned for a certain amount of time. I can tell you that much, but I don't.
Yeah. So no, I like that pick. And it's never a bad idea to be proactive at that position. So, well, man, we're done. We finished our first NFL draft preview.
Yes, we did. Oh, our yeah.
Well,
Okay, yeah.
oh, we did
First
one
full
last year.
one.
First full
Second
one.
day of it, but now we're yeah.
There you go. Yeah. Anything else you want to add before we get out of here? Any other thoughts, comments, concerns?
Um, no, I got nothing. Wherever you are, Travis Benjamin, just know I still hate you. That's it
I
though.
still feel very strongly about you, Travis Benjamin.
I'll never forget that play, Travis Benjamin. Just know I will never forget that. But you know what?
Burned
He
into
did
your
have that
brain.
one catch on the fourth down in Arrowhead when we beat him that one Thursday night.
Yeah, but
But let's
that's
be
always
honest.
backup.
Yeah,
That was more
Philip
skill.
made that
That was more
Philip made
skill.
that
Let's be
play, dude.
honest.
I could have caught that ball. Philip made that play.
Yeah, Philip squeezed that through a fucking 2-inch window. So yeah.
Good old Phil,
But
man.
yeah, man. Um, yeah, I don't have anything else. So let's go ahead and get out of here. Thank you guys for listening to another episode of Chargers Powder Hour. This has been episode number 70, NFL Draft Preview Part 2. Make sure to follow along on our social medias. We have an Instagram now, a YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and I believe that's it for now, anyways. At Powder Hour Pod LA, that is our handle. So follow us along there and make sure to subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube and give us a review on Spotify or Apple. Thanks, guys. Bolt up.